Hello, everybody, for our afternoon session. I am warmly welcoming Professor Michael Klein-Altenkamp. He's our special keynote speaker. And I'm sure most of you probably know Michael from diverse conferences, from publications, from all his work that he did in the academic field. But I would like to say a few sentences about his background. He is Professor Emeritus at the Marketing Department of Freie Universität Berlin in Germany. He's also Professor of Business and Service Marketing, and he was, I saw that, a very impressive 28 years Director of the Executive Master of Business Marketing Program. His work, as we all know, is about value in business markets, solution business, marketing theories, and we have lots of publications from Michael in Journal of Marketing, Journal of Service Research, IMM, JBIM, just to name a few journals. And it's a great pleasure to have him here for our keynote speak today. And well, just can say some personal words. When I entered the community, this was 2009, Michael was already there, and we've learned so much from him. And I really, really hope, Michael, that you will still stay in the network, in our business network, in our community, and enrich us with your experience and your academic knowledge. Very much looking forward. The topic today, customer success management, supporting business customers in achieving their goals. And I think Jose already told you 25 minutes for the presentation, more or less, and then we have a discussion for about 15 minutes. So thank you very much for being with us.
Yeah, thank you, Barbara, and all the other organizers of the conference for having me. It's a great pleasure and honor to give a keynote today. I'm very pleased to be here and to see so many faces, not in reality, but at least seeing the names here on the display who are attending the conference, and I'm very happy to be here and to give this talk. Yeah, it's on customer success management that many of you might have heard already about, a new trend, so to say, in B2B marketing, many large extent driven by practical developments in service business and subscription-based business especially. But I would like maybe have a little bit of broader view on this whole topic of customer success management, and also show you some of the studies we did already in this field. So what I'm going to talk about is that, first of all, I would like again talk about customer-related value concepts in business markets, because from my understanding, from our understanding here from Berlin, so to say, because also Andreas Eggert and his team is working in this field, we see a close relation between this idea of customer success and especially value in use. Then I would like to explain what we understand under the term customer success management, and thus also about what we think customer success management is and could be. And then I will go through 4 studies we already did in the field that are dealing with the drivers of customer success management, the customer-related management activities, how customers themselves perceive customer success management, and what impact it has on their behavioral intentions. And at the end, I would like to link back the concept of customer success management also to the value concepts and to other value-related management concepts. So this is what I'm going to talk about. So let's start with customer-related management concepts. So in the old days, so to say, the world was very easy. There was an exchange, also especially in the business books and in marketing books and in what we taught, and the only thing sales and buying behavior research basically was focusing on was the value in exchange. That was so to say the old days, 50, 60, 70 years ago. Then during the 90s, more and more it became obvious and not very new for the people in B2B marketing that this very transaction here in the middle typically has a history and also has a future, hopefully. That means that there is a business relationship as a series of transactions that are somehow interrelated to each other. And that led also to a new concept, a new value concept, which is called relationship value. And this is more the idea that this whole series of transactions between a customer and a supply firm has a kind of a value of its own. And then something happened that originally started already more than 150 years ago, because suddenly something popped up with the concept of value in use. But this is not, honestly speaking, it's not really new. It was already introduced by Karl Menger, who was an Austrian economist, and he designed or developed a value logic, in German, a Wertlehre, where he already made this distinction between value in use and value in exchange. And value in use, he already said at that time, 1871, value in use can only arise when a good available for a customer is used for the satisfaction of needs. So there's already this relation between what we as customers, also as individual customers, need and how this creates value for us. And he also said that value in exchange can only anticipate future usage. So there is this differentiation between a value that is, so to say, created in the moment of exchange, and there's a value that is created, and today we probably would say co-created in use. This was also taken by Alderson in the 1980s. He already talked about here only focusing on consumers. He said eventually marketing will have to look beyond consumer purchase to the stream of activities in which goods are consumed in order to achieve a more fundamental understanding of consumption requirements. So he also focused or stressed the importance of what is happening after purchase, and then it might gain the most prominent attention by the paper of Vargo and Lasch from 2004, where they introduced their service dominant logic and said value is perceived and determined by the consumer. At that time they only talked about consumer, not on of actors in general, determined by the consumer on the basis of value in use. So suddenly value in use became much more important. So what has happened from a conceptual point of view, suddenly we have something else here in our transaction, which is the value in use, where we had the value in exchange before. So how can we deal with it? So is it the same? Is it somehow different? Are these things that are important, this value concept within one transaction, behave in ways that contribute to their goals? So that they say that the main driver of our behavior is the goals that we want to achieve. And the goal is a mental image on other endpoint that represents representation that is associated with the fact toward which action may be directed. So we do things because we want to achieve goals. So what we strive for. And you know probably that there's also this hierarchy of subordinate and superordinate goals where the subordinate goals contribute to the achievement of the superordinate goals. And that means, in the sense, that value is the perceived extent of goal achievement. So everything is for us of value if it contributes somehow to the achievements of our goals. This is from the individual perspective. But interestingly, we also see this from an organizational perspective, because the behavioral theory of the firm also says that organization action is goal-driven, and that there might exist multiple goals coexist in an organization. And these goals that are pursued in a firm, they can either relate to the whole firm, but also to certain organizational subunits, like departments or work teams. And depending on their roles, the members of organization may pursue different and sometimes also conflicting goals. So what we know also in somehow from the old buying center concept, that they different interests related to the several members of a buying center. And the extent to which specific outcomes, interestingly, they say, outcomes contribute to the achievement of the goal is a measure of performance for a firm, an organizational unit, a work group, or an individual. So what we can say, if we take these two theories together that are both related to the behavior either of an individual or of a firm, is that we could define customer perceived value as customer perceived as a measure of goal achievement that reflects the perceived contributions of objects, processes, or behaviors to the goals of an individual, organizational, or some other entity. So this is our understanding of value. This is a very broad understanding, but it relates to the individuals also in the firm, but also to the firm as a whole. So what we now can say is it might be better to see value in exchange not as value in exchange, but as an expected value in use. Yeah, you remember that Karl Menger already said this. There's that value in exchange, only the future can be anticipated, and expected value in use, that is something that is sold, so to say, in the moment of exchange. These are promises and expectations. The suppliers make promises and their value propositions, and the customers develop expectations. And if they match, they agree into a contract, they buy something and can sell something. But what is real values, as some people say, like Grönroth or Waage und Lösch, is only afterwards, when both parties integrate their resources and they experience what is really happening in use. So our way of going into this or seeing this is that it might be better to talk about expected value in use, that is sold, and experience value in use, that is experience in usage processes, and this is related to value. So that means that the expectations that are sold and delivered, so to say, in expected value in use, raised in expected value in use, they have an influence on the experience value in use. Yeah? We know this from the satisfaction discussion. So we develop certain expectations, and if they are met through our experience, then we might be satisfied. The same thing is that our experiences in previous transactions have an impact on our next expectations as customers. So that also has an impact on the next transaction in a series of transactions. And both concepts also are related to relationship value, because our experience have an impact on this overall assessment of a relationship. So if they are good or bad, then they contribute to relationship value. And on the other hand, relationship value also sets the stage, or have an impact on the expectations we develop as customers, because if we have a good relationship to a supplier and we see a certain relationship value, we expect that it more or less, or sold more or less, in each and every next transaction. So we have this relation, we see these relationships. First of all, we think that by seeing expected value in use, experience value in use, and relationship value can be distinguished. This can be distinguished in this sense. And on the other hand, we see these relationships. So how does this now contribute to customer success management? Why is this becoming a more and more important trend in business markets? First of all, we have subscription-based business models. They're becoming more and more important, but subscription-based business models, they are somehow attractive for the suppliers because they generate a constant revenue stream. But on the other hand, they are easy to churn. Sorry, for customers it's easy to switch the supplier, because each and every month or each and every year they have the possibility not to sign the contract again. Though for the suppliers, because they are dependent on this revenue stream, there is a need to avoid customer churn. Second, we have this trend of servitized offerings, customer solutions, hybrid offerings. Yesterday we had the interesting presentation of Kowalkowski on servitization. But servitization and solution means that there's a collaboration between customers and suppliers in the usage processes. The suppliers cannot sell something and then leave the customers alone. The customers are also part of the value creation processes, and that makes it difficult to fully control what is happening in the customer sphere. And we have a progressive digitization, and that means that because of this digitization, we have more and more data available that helps firms to actually screen the usage behavior and the value creation in use after something has been sold in a market. So, and this is, so to say, the background that led to this more and more the bigger relevance of customer success management in practice. So we see, for instance, at LinkedIn that now in 2022, in the meantime, more than 150,000 people say that they have a position as a customer success manager. So we see the books that are published on the topic. We have a known association of customer success managers, and we have huge conferences and meetings where customer success managers meet. And this is also reflected more and more in literature. So we have more and more paper, but you see the numbers here of the years that it really started in 2020, where more and more authors started to investigate what is it, how important it is, and what do we need to understand better about this business function. So how can we now define customer success management? As I said, we are closely working together here in this field also with Andreas Eggert, who has now taken over my position at the Freie Universität, Anna Gehring, who is a doctoral student of Andreas, and also Wolfgang Ulaga, you might all know. And they define, based also on empirical studies they did, that customer success is a strongly held and shared belief that engaging with the supplier and integrating and using its resources contributes substantially to customers' goal achievement. So they bring together this usage processes, this development of value in use to the idea of goal achievement, as I explained before. So from our understanding, customer success, not management first of all, but customer success as a concept relates to experienced value in use as the extent to which customers' goals are achieved in usage processes. Starting from that, customer success management then means that supplier firms proactively manage this goal achievement that occurs when customers use the market offerings of the suppliers, and do this by monitoring and improving customers' key performance indicators. So we have, on the one hand, customer-related activities that aim at monitoring and securing and enhancing customer success. So once this is done with the customers at the customer side, so to say, together with the customers. And on the other hand, firms need to implement organizational structures and processes in order to do this, and to be able to manage those things. Coming from that, we can develop a CSM framework. CSM stands for Customer Success Management. And that means that in the center, so to say, we have these CSM activities. On the one hand, the implementation of the structures and processes within the supplier firm, and on the other hand, the activities that are related at the customers. But there are antecedents, so they are drivers of this development, and this is one of the things we need to better know: what drives the implementation of CSM, what outcomes does CSM have, so what is the perceived value of the CSM activities themselves, and how does this drive the behavioral intentions, or even better, maybe the behavior of the customers. And these are the four topics that I would like to go into it a little bit in detail, because to all of these four pillars, so to say, we had an empirical study. So the first one that has been just recently been published in IMM together with Katharina Pohl-Schwenke, is a doctoral student of mine who just successfully finished her PhD 2 weeks ago, and Joona Kerinen from RMIT in Australia. We published this paper on what drives the implementation of customer success management. And the study was so that we had data from 2016 to 2020, where a lot of these data was dyadic data, so with the same business relationships with representatives from both sides. And then later on, we even went more into detail by having additional interviews with customer representatives, trying to better understand especially what is going on the customer side, because many of these things, as you might know, are focused from the supplier side, but we are always interested in what is also happening on the customer side. And what we could see is that these antecedents, and we could develop these antecedents we identified in the study, that they can be clustered or grouped, better to say, in their relation to this, the value and use concept. So there are certain antecedents that are basically looking or are driven, so to say, or established by expected value in use, so common business practices, existing supplier capabilities that can be used for doing these customer success management activities. The others are lacking resources, so the people are not able to do this themselves, so somebody needs to do it for them, or sometimes the project or relationship phase has an impact here. But other things were more related to the relationship value in terms of how important is a business relationship, or how can we strengthen the personal relationship here when doing this customer success management activities. What we also did was to analyze in how far these drivers are more or less important for the both sides. Yeah, so you can see here that we could develop from that this 2x2 matrix according to the relevance of these drivers either for the customers or for the suppliers. And you can see on the right top side that the value proposition, the offering complexity, the project type, existing supplier capabilities, and others were things that were assessed as being very, very important from both customers and suppliers, whereas others were not that important, whereas some were especially important for the customers and especially important for the suppliers. So both sides are driven by these antecedents, and whether they do customer success management or whether they want customer success management as being performed by a supplier. The second study, together with Katharina Prohl, at that time she was only Prohl, not Prohl-Schwenke, you know, that you can now see that she married in between, is that was on the customer related activities. So what are we doing? And here we interviewed, or what are the firms doing when they do customer success management? So here we interviewed 21 interviews. We interviewed employees from different supplier companies. And what we see here is the process, the overall customer success management process that has this different stage of value and use identification, reporting, reflecting on opportunities and dissemination. But we also could see that there is a kind of a precursor process that is the value quantification and communication that is done in value-based selling. And what we also could see here, just as a first result, interesting result maybe, that typically these things that are happening in value-based selling are not really good connected to value and use identification and reporting. So the rest of the process is not really well connected to each other, which may cause some problems. Here you see in detail the several activities and the subcategories, so quantification, communication, indirect value identification, value reporting, and so on. And what we also could see is that the value indicators that are used in practice in order to measure, so to say, customer success or experience value in use are sometimes much more closer to the economic impact, and sometimes, because it's not that easy to measure, they are much more. There's more an indirect connection between these KPIs that are measured in customer success management activities. So these need to be interpreted in a way how they contribute to the success of a firm. So you can see that impact on sales volume, if it's possible to measure this and to show this as an outcome of using a solution, for instance, then it's really close to profit and to economic impact. But sometimes there are other KPIs that can only be measured.
Michael, we have reached 25 minutes, just to let you know.
Yeah. Okay, great. So maybe I can cut it short in terms of that we measured also the outcomes. So what are the effects that customers look on when they evaluate customer success management, and what are the outcomes in terms of their behavioral intentions? I'll just go to the results. So what we could see here is that the customers evaluate the supplier resources and they evaluate the resource and integration process in a sense that how they contribute to the achievement either to collective value in use or to individual value in use. So this is what you see on the right-hand side. And we saw that value in use monitoring, value in use enhancement, and value-based setting are, so to say, drivers of this supplier resources, the usage of the supplier resource and the resource integration. And the most effect, so to say, comes from value in use enhancement. So typically the evaluation process of the customer starts with value in use enhancement. So if suppliers are able to enhance the value in use, that has a positive impact on collective or individual value in use. And in the last study that Katharina did as part of a dissertation, she was able to generate a measurement and to test a measurement model to measure the extent of customer success management by the customers. So she did a big quantitative study. So this model can be used to test or to measure in how far customer success management is done and as perceived by the customers. And then she looked in how far this CSM implementation that you see here on the left-hand side has an impact on relational and behavioral outcomes. And to make it short, the findings show that CSM implementation has a positive effect on relationship value, it has a positive effect on relationship quality, it has a positive effect on customers' extent to expand business, and these effects are mediated by relationship value. So overall, we can say that the implementation of customer success management, as if it is perceived as such by the customers, has positive impacts on the customer relationship and relationship value that the suppliers hope to be achieved. So, what can we now say? Coming back to other customer related management concepts. So from my perspective, our perspective, we would say that value-based selling is basically focusing on expected value in use. So it's the idea to create the expectations of the customer and to build in, so to say, the expected value in use in the value promise, in the customer value proposition. Then we have the customer's experience value in use. So we need to have this customer success management in order to really realize and secure these promised value in use. And then we have this customer relationship management and key account management that are basically looking at the relationship value. And again, like these concepts are related, we can also say that I think that these concepts, these management concepts, are related. But we also can see that they are not very good linked in practice. So my summary, I think that customer success management is what we can see. This is not what I think. This is what we can see. That is a fast developing business function, and mainly in the fields of subscription-based business and solution business. What we also can see is that it has a very strong potential to secure and increase experience value in use as really the driver of value of the customers. And thus, by doing so, it has the ability and capacity to strengthen customer relationships. And basically, it relates to the core of B2B marketing, customer perceived value, but not that value that is sold, but that value that is perceived in use. So from my perspective, and now that's more my personal view, CSM is one of the most, if not the most important development in B2B marketing, because it really comes to the core of B2B marketing, not selling, but creating value for the customer. In one way or another, CSM can also be implemented and should be implemented in every supplier firm, not necessarily in a business function like it's done in subscription-based businesses. And this is one thing that we saw as a problem in reality or in business in the firms, is that it needs much more better linked and integrated with other value-related management concepts, especially the value-based selling. Oh, and if you want to read more about this, there will be a a book out soon where Katharina Prochwenke and Laura Elgeti and myself will develop these thoughts in much more detail, and hope you might be interested in reading this book. And so this is the little advertising at the end of my presentation. Thanks for listening.
Michael, thank you very much. Very interesting presentation. Are there any questions? Oh, I can already see Cecilia, please.
Hi, I'm sorry. I was just
Okay, I think Cecilia, it was a mistake, but Jamil, there's another question. Jamil, please go ahead.
So
I'm not sure. You mentioned Jamil, yes?
Yes.
Yes. Thank you very much. It's very nice presentation. Michael, I am a newcomer to this area. I'm not expert, and I will utilize your experience in making me understand my questions and link it to my area specifically. I think this will be on micro level. Some companies related to, like for example, technological fields, Apple, Microsoft. Sometimes they utilize what it's called, I think in the literature, it's called customer beans to collect customer complaints and benefit from that in building their value proposition in general. To which extent do you think this approach will help customer success management?
Yeah, as I try to explain.
Okay. I remember there was a talking to Steve Jobs or Bill Gates. They said that maybe 70% of our innovative product depends on customer complaints.
Yeah, but then I understand. So, but the customer complaints appear because people are not satisfied when they use something. Yes. So obviously, this is exactly the link I wanted to show, that when people complain, they do this because they have different expectations compared to what is happening when they use something, whatever it is, a product, a service, or combination of those, whatever. So that means there's something happening in use, and this is where customer success management is focusing on, that has an impact on the next buying decision, and also on what people are selling in terms of what the next value proposition will be. So this is the link that I showed between one transaction and the next transaction. So there was this little arrow. So if this is happening there, that has an impact on what is happening in the next transaction. And so this is very much related to this topic. But what we can see is in customer success management, they are not only focusing on complaints, they are focusing on many other things, and also on more positive things, so to say, and try to better understand how value is created for the customer, what they use. In many cases, we have so many users. There's not only one individual who uses something. So we call this the usage center, so in parallel to the buying center, and we need really to better understand how this value creation is happening in use, and not there's no value creation in sales. There's no value creation in sales. There's only promises, and promises is to be kept.
Yeah, thank you very much. Thank you, Michael.
You're welcome.
So there's another question from Christina, please.
Thank you.
Yeah, hi, Christina.
Hi, Michael. Thank you. Great seeing you again.
Yeah.
I really liked your presentation and going back to the roots of relationship marketing and all the important concepts, kind of linking it to what is happening right now. So that's really important development, I think, to kind of touch upon the upcoming new concepts. My question is about customer success management vis-a-vis customer experience management. As you know, I mean, these are different concepts, but how do you see that they are linked?
I would say that customer experience management is a subcategory of customer success management. Why are we interested in customer experiences? Because we think that they somehow reflect the value creation of a customer. At the moment, what I see is that in many cases, especially in B2B, they are not that much related to what is happening in use. These customer experience how it is done in practice is very much focusing on the buying process, both in B2C as in B2B. But this is the part that I think is interesting, but that leads to the making the decision to buy. But what is happening afterwards? So this is in many cases missing, really, and especially when it comes to B2B, there is not much in terms of that. There are many people who are using things. There are many different experiences. Yeah. So just think of a software, or think of just what is happening here. We are experiencing Zoom. So I see at least 20, 30, 40 tiles here. I see small faces. We all experience this one focal resource, probably very differently. And this is happening every day in the firms. So if the company is having a software system, or the people on the shop floor are using a machine or whatever, so many different experiences with the same resource. And this is, you cannot compare this to this very tiny things that are sometimes measured in customer experience management. So I would say it's, first of all, again, and customer experience management could be a part or can be a part of customer success management, but customer experience management in its current way, how it's done, is missing many important things, especially in the B2B field.
And I agree, and I think it's excellent that the customer success management kind of also incorporates the goals achievement, which experience is kind of coming into, but not so much focusing on, and kind of seeing success management as the overarching concept or kind of function. But I'm a little bit worried about or thinking about that, can companies in general, I mean, just very without looking into specific industries or companies, but are they able to kind of handle and actually do activities towards customer experience management, customer success management, relationship marketing, and all different types of functions that kind of we as researchers develop?
I agree. This is complicated, and as I said, we already saw in practice that there's something often a missing link between these concepts. Yeah. Oh,
but interesting.
The people that are doing these concepts.
Yes, but very interesting. So
thank you
so much for sharing.
Thanks.
So there are some more questions. I think Jillian Hamash, you were first, right? Please go ahead.
Okay, thank you so much. My question for Michael was on the behavioral theory of the firm, and I was just wondering if you gave any thought to using the institutional logics perspective as one of your supporting theories, because there is quite a bit of similarity between what you were saying, leading to the value logic, and what is showing up in the institutional logics field.
Yeah. The institutional logics are referring to broader fields. So typically you would say that, for instance, let's say power supply or utilities have a certain institutional logic as a field. I think you might talk about institutional arrangements in a firm maybe, or something like that. And what you can say is that the development of the goals. So what do people see as desirable for a firm? This is driven by the institutions that are valid or that are in a firm. Yeah? So that they drive, on the one hand, the development of such goals, and they also have an impact on how the goal achievement is evaluated. So I would say this is a step further back, so to say, behind the goal, the development of the goals. So on the individual side, it's very much driven by our individual desires. This is what Pagosi and others say. But in firms, we don't have desires because firms are no individuals. So we need to think a little bit differently and say, so what do people think? What is desirable for a firm? And if you ask the CEO will give you a different answer compared to the purchasing manager. The purchasing manager might have a different view on the people on the shop floor.
Okay. I feel like we are running short in time, but I feel like there are two more questions and maybe two short questions, Michael and Mohammed. But Michael was first, I guess, right?
Yeah.
Michael, please.
Yeah, well, great to see that value in use is having a good impact on the B2B performance. Great to see. No, my question was about your conception of expected versus experienced value in use. I think that makes great sense. I just wonder if there would be good reasons still to keep something like value in exchange also, so that we have these free boxes, because I think the challenge might be to translate these financial things, the value perceptions and the value performance into a contract, and that might be a challenge by itself. So that might be.
I see what you mean, but I would say that from a marketing perspective, this differentiation between experienced and expected and experienced value in use makes more sense, because it's creating the expectations or developing the expectations and then fulfilling those. This is very much
that I'm totally with you.
But value in exchange is, as it was originally conceptualized also by Menger and others, is more on the market field. So it's on a higher level. So it represents the exchange rate, so to say, between something. Yeah. And this is more a market thing and not that much a marketing perspective. So I don't have an issue with value in exchange, but for the marketing purposes, I think that this differentiation is more useful.
Okay.
Okay, so last question, Mohammed, please go ahead.
First of all, thank you very much, Michael, for your insightful presentation. My question is about how do you see the concept of shared value, the evolution of the term of value in use, shared value, and how does it fit a customer success, say, context?
I need to ask the question back. What do you mean with shared value?
A shared value. I think we have an evolution in the term of a value, from value in exchange to value in use to shared value. So I think this is a new term.
Maybe it's something I missed, but from who is sharing what? Which value is shared?
I think it's more about the impact of the value the company is creating. What is the shared value in terms of the societal impact, the economic impact, and the holistic approach to value concept? This is
okay, I understand. So then it's always the question is always what is, I would say, the reference object. So value, if you say value is goal achievement or the extent of goal achievement, then it's always the question which goals of whom or of what. So you can say that a firm has certain goals, and then you can measure it, in how far certain things relate to achievement of that goal. So if you say they want to have profit, then you can say, okay, the more profit we make, the more value this represents. If you say we want to have sustainability as a goal for the whole society, a nation, whatever, then you can say, okay, now how far does this contribute to the achievement of being more sustainable? So it's always the question, what is the reference object of goal achievement and who has what goals? And it's easy to understand, I guess, or easy to imagine that there are quite big differences in terms of which goals are applicable and which are important, and especially when it comes to entities that are not individuals. So we, for ourselves, we are very good, hopefully, in defining what goals we want to achieve. But when it comes to collectives like firms, work groups, nations, the whole world, whatever, then it becomes difficult because everybody else has different ideas what is the value or is the goal that should be achieved.
Thank you
that's
very
the
much.
issue.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Okay, so I think we can see like the discussion shows like this. It's a very, very interesting topic, and there are lots of research questions that we can still take on and have some more research projects with this topic, customer success management. Really interesting. Michael, thanks a lot for the great presentation.
Thank you for having me. Thank you.
Thank you.